So it is about the sandwich generation, part 4 of the Caregiver Conversations for this month is the final conversation we're having. But we want to let you know that you're not alone. You're not the only one going crazy sometimes, trying to balance it all. But this is a heart-centered conversation with those balancing the care for children, aging parents, and loved ones, also loved ones with special needs. And this is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation today, because one of the people that I love dearly, who's taught me a lot about patience, is going to be featured today. So much so that I love her that I can't actually interview her. I'm asking Sonia to step in, and I will close the room afterwards with my viewpoints, because otherwise I'll get emotional. So I am Jillian. I am the creator of the Good Health Story community, where we do share some stories, we share some solutions on healthcare and for ourselves. And this is a mission of love. And one of the reasons why I created this community was to help me also learn how to take onus and accountability by putting myself forward and helping care for myself by caring for others. So I invite you to understand a little bit more about what a sandwich generation is all about. So definition, when we say sandwich generation, it refers to individuals who are responsible for caring both their aging parents and their own children, but they're often middle-aged adults balancing caregiving responsibilities with their own careers and personal lives, as if they even have any when they consider everything that they're balancing, and experiencing significant time, emotional, and financial demands. So this is one of the reasons why Ann is going to step forward and help us with some of the insight of what she's done and what she's been advocating for years in order to get better at controlling some of the challenges of this that this faces most people when they're in a sandwich generation. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the mic to my beautiful friend, Sonia, who is also a health advocate. She is one of the perfect people that Ann needs to connect with when it comes to wellness and health benefits, because she does not only help people feel better, but she also helps them afford and navigate the financial so they can get access to things that can help them feel better. So I'm really, really proud to call her my friend, a partner in health. So thank you, Sonia. And thank you for stepping up to ask Ann the questions. And I know Ann was expecting me to do so, but you'll understand why at the end of this call. Okay? All right, over to you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your precious time to come and listen and hear about the sandwich generation, because I know for myself, I find myself there as well. And I know for many of you, you might be headed down that road, or you're already in that road, or maybe you're past that road and you have some value to give to other folks that are going to be listening in here, whether through Facebook, one of our social media outlets, or on a replay, or right now directly. I just want to welcome you and thank you for coming here. Remember, whenever it has to do with benefits, then you want to reach out to me and through the group, through our good stories, so you can have more intuition, more insight on how these things work when it comes to maybe your health benefits or your public insurance that you may have, or your private insurance that you may have. So with that, go ahead and go on to the next slide, Jillian. And like always, thank goodness for Jillian, because I'll tell you, she puts these presentations together and they do take time. They're not just a snap in a sense. Even with AI, you have to have some insight on what you want it prompted to do. And let's just go over some of the areas that are really challenging for most caregivers today. And there's rewards too, don't get me wrong. I think that when we give of ourselves, sometimes we're the ones that benefit more than the person receiving the benefit, because of when you give, somehow you get tenfold sometimes back. And sometimes the reward is something that you can't even touch or feel. So with that, what are the primary challenges that most people have right now? Obviously, it's physical. Physically, sometimes the dual task of having to have both roles, right? The time consumption that it may have. And not only the time consumption, think about the emotional and the mental, where it drains you, but then it rewards you, right? So we just want to identify the significant positive emotional and mental benefits that are derived from a unique caregiving role. So want to make sure that also we know if you've ever been, if you're a mom or if you're an aunt, or maybe you foster kids, or you just your nieces and nephews, you take care of them, right? Or friends, kids, you take care of them, or your parents, somebody's parents you're taking care of because maybe they didn't have children. You know, it can become very overwhelming at times, and there are ways that you can actually effectively strategize and help support those individuals. Now, obviously, we're going to also cover areas of advice for others, offer guidance and recommendations for individuals entering or currently experiencing the sandwich generation role. So really do stay tuned. I know you may have other things going on. The replay will be available, just so you know, but it's important for you to try to capture and have the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. And I just want to welcome you. I'm excited to have you here today because I know there's nothing like having insight from a person that has gone through that challenge, that has walked through that valley and has seen the top of the mountain and can look back and say, hey, yes, it's challenging, but guess what? You can make it. If I did it, you can do it. And I just thank you for taking the time to give to us today to be able to tell our viewers how they can navigate these waters that they might find themselves in and what tips and recommendations you give. So come on in, Ann. Give her a round of applause.
I do actually think just before we bring Ann in, I think for the audience, just so you know, I think it's powerful if they watch this 1-minute video where they get to know Ann. Okay, let's watch this 1-minute video where we get to know who Ann is. So I'm just going to remove your spotlight so you can see the full video, and then we'll move on to introducing Ann.
In 2010. Ann Coughlan has spent decades filling out medical paperwork. Her entire family is disabled. So it was a surprise when the Canada Revenue Agency said her son's disability tax credit had expired. And I'm like, what on earth is this? He's still autistic. That meant going back to his doctor with a new 16-page form, the exact same one they'd already filled out. It took an entire year before he was reapproved. We're on a limited budget, very limited, and we couldn't afford for him to not have that money. The disability tax credit is the gatekeeper to 13 other federal supports, like the $200 a month benefit. But the majority of disabled Canadians don't receive the credit, in part because the application process is so complicated. Now the Liberal government has promised to fix it.
It was onerous to begin with, number one. Doctors could fill it out only. And it was a 15, 16-page form. It took literally hours and hours for them to fill it out.
Ottawa now has a list of long-lasting medical conditions it will streamline applications for, and it will allow more types of medical professionals to fill out the form.
Now this streamlining will at least identify people who have significant disabilities such as Down syndrome or cerebral palsy will not have to prove over and over again that they have a disability.
But disability advocates say there are still too many barriers, because even if someone has proven to their province they're disabled, the federal government won't recognize it. Pretty bad that my own country is doing this to us, but I thank God every day that we have it, because we'd be on the street without the support. I know friends who have. Some private companies are profiting off of Canadians desperate to get these supports, filling out the paperwork for people and then charging thousands of dollars. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Wow, Ann. It's one thing to have the challenge that that is your child and you have to care for that child, and to know that you need that assistance. I have friends, dear friends, that have not just one autistic child, but 2 autistic children, and they're adults now. And I can't imagine how that had affected you emotionally to be able to want to help your child and not be able to get that assistance that you needed. Can you share with us a little bit about your caregiving journey and what life looks like for you today?
Well, my caregiving journey started in 1999, so I guess it might take a bit, so I'll just skip to the good parts. My son was diagnosed with autism at a year and a half, severe nonverbal, and they said that that would be it, and he'd never talk. And I cried for 3 days, and then I said, okay, get your stuff in gear and let's start. So my pediatrician referred me to everyone you could possibly need when your child's been diagnosed with autism. So I thank my pediatrician for doing that, because I wouldn't have known where to start. And because of that, I was prepared for who I needed to see when my children entered the school system. I learned from other parents who attended. I went to a postpartum group when I had my daughter the next year, trying to figure out how to handle her needs and keep my son in the loop. And I'll tell you, things happen for a reason. I believe that completely. I met a woman at a postpartum group in year 2000. She had a son with autism. What are the odds? Here I am new to this, and she has a son who's a few years older than mine, and the two of us chatted. She told me all these things about when you go to the school, you should ask for this and this and this, find out your rights. There's a website, there's a person you can talk to. And everything I did was, where can I find more information? Because there's never enough. And one of the things I tell parents when I talk to them is knowledge is power. And if your child is not getting what they need in school, high school, college, you know what they're entitled to, what their rights are, and then you let them know if they can understand it. And then, I mean, that has followed me right to, they both graduated from college these last couple of years. My son does not talk. I can't shut him up. And my daughter is going to help at a special needs camp this summer as her job. She did the ECE, and my son is working in a warehouse for a couple of days so that the rest of the time he can do his 3D animation that he got for his diploma. So was it up and down and all around and Yahoo? Yes. But things happened over those years that had they not happened, I don't think I'd be here. And unfortunately, that is the truth. So,
Wow. You know, it's when somebody is born without sight, without hearing, it's like the other senses just get overstimulated. Like they grow much bigger and much more than a person that can have all five senses. The senses that are left, and that's like you, the senses of a parent. You were receptive and open to receive from the people that you encountered along the way, which was awesome, because sometimes people shut out and don't want to let nobody know what's going on. And I think that's a huge lesson for everybody here. You don't know where your help is going to come from. This came from a lady that was attending the postpartum that just so happened. I mean, back then, there probably wasn't as many autistic children as there are today, obviously.
No, there wasn't. And I'll tell you, one of the major things that happened was when my son was just starting grade 1, and we had a lady come to my door to buy this stereo I was getting rid of. She was trained in autism development. And when she came to the door to get this stereo, I said, pardon my son, because he was hopping around all over the place. And she says, oh, no, that's okay. I know how to handle children with autism. And I said, really? That was 25 years ago. And she lives down the street. She has become part of our family. And I know for a fact that her knowledge and what she's shown me over the years has been invaluable. And so that's why another thing I tell parents, if you don't have somebody who can back you up when you need a break, you know, as my son said, oh, Lisa's coming, so mommy can go sing Ooh La La. It was karaoke night. You know, that was his description of it, you know. So
it's amazing. Now, you mentioned something right now. You teach others, you advocate. Is that what you're doing now? You're helping others as well? And
it's not a job.
Okay.
I had to leave my job at a time where I couldn't do it all. I ended up divorced and on my own with the two of them, and I couldn't do a full-time job and do what they needed. I mean, they need 2 or 3 people in the schools to deal with one of your kids, and it's just you. So I share. I mean, I go to autism events, I go to different things, and then people ask me, how did your children get where they are today? And I said, do you really want me to tell you the main factor? And when I tell them that I don't work, I can't. But this is why. And here's the result. And when it's people here in Ontario, I say, my children are your tax dollars at work. We survived going through all this so that I could help them get where they are today. And if I can share these tidbits with other people and help them get the same encouragement, then why not? I mean,
right. No, I totally agree with you. You know what? The system was created to help, especially your kids. They just had you. You were a single parent. This is what it was made for, to help relieve. And even the parents that have dual parents in the home, there's assistance out there. And I imagine you would have advocated for them as well as you were going through this. I know that some parents, and we're talking about the sandwich generation today. And I know we're talking about your children right now.
But if you had told me back then that when my children were 12 and 14, I'd meet a man who wanted to be part of that.
Wow.
And he didn't even know about autism. He didn't understand it. He didn't want to. He says, I just want to get to know them the way I see them. And that's exactly what he's done. So
that's provided.
And I guess it's not unfortunate. It's just the way things happen. And now he's got a physical limitation, and they help him too. So
now you're telling me you had your 2 kids that were small. You weren't looking for love, but it found you.
Mm-hmm. I actually tried to convince him not to get married, and he said, nope, that's okay. So things happen and you don't expect them, and he's still here.
So now you were mentioning that you also take care of him now as well? Okay.
And
how's that for you between managing, but your kids are adults now, right? So they can manage a little bit better, or you're still at the same level as you were when they were younger?
Actually, my goal was to make sure that they knew the basics at home so that they could look after themselves, at least at home, if they didn't get into a job or whatever. And I mean, my kids were doing laundry and dishes and knew how to, and my son, when COVID hit, he was the only one who was healthy enough to go and get groceries. We have a grocery store in the plaza here. So he took a picture of himself the first day he went over with groceries and posted it on Facebook and said, look how independent I am. I'm getting the groceries for everybody. So when little things like that come up, it makes me feel like I'm doing my job and it's succeeding.
So, sometimes sometimes it feels like a drip, right? A little drip every day, because it's not huge progress that you see all at once. But when you've seen that,
Yes.
him go out and feel confident and able,
Yeah.
you know, this one thing, parents out there, if you have maybe someone you know, or parents that are dealing with the situation of having children that are autistic, it's really important to know, you know, doctors diagnose all kinds of things, but what they say isn't definite, meaning that your son was told that he was nonverbal, but you're saying you can't stop him from talking.
Well, when I went back to my doctor and said, you know, I read this article from somebody in the States about how her son wasn't exhibiting the symptoms of autism anymore because she cut back on his dairy. And I thought, well, I'm lactose intolerant. I wonder. So that's what I did. No dairy. And within 3 to 4 months, he was making sounds, and he was pointing to different pictures. I carried around a 3-inch binder full of PEC symbols for him to point at to tell me what he wanted. And then eventually that moved to telling me a sentence and to making a schedule and having them put the pictures in the schedule of what they were going to do that day. So routine was big. Thank God, because I think if without routine, I think I would have gone nuts. But these are things that I wouldn't have had access to had I not known from another mother I met through Autism Ontario. And
it's really key.
These are the things, you know, you need to share. You have to ask questions to everybody. You know what? I don't care if everybody learns my life story. If my kids benefit, so be it.
Right. No, yeah. I totally agree with you. One of the things that most caregivers have that when they're dealing with their disabled children or adult children or a partner, what are some of the biggest emotional challenges that people don't always see?
I have to tell you, the one thing that really gets me, and I try not to let it get me upset, is I see people with typical children. I say that because nobody's normal. We all have our things. And I see, you know, people saying, "Oh, I can't wait for them to, you know, go to university and have the house to myself." And I think to myself, I'll never know not having time to myself. You know, they will always be with me. Even now, they want to be independent. They want to be out on their own. But I mean, people are talking about how expensive it is to live. Well, never mind that. They couldn't even rent a room right now, even with them working, because what's out there is not available. So it's very emotional when I see, you know, even my siblings, our children have challenges. Doesn't necessarily mean they all have autism or whatever, but kids have, you know, issues as you grow up. I mean, we don't know what we all had when we were kids because nobody really tested anybody. Just if you didn't do it, keep on going, it'll come eventually. But then I try to wean off that thought because look where they've come.
You know, it's
interesting.
No, it's interesting that you say that because I seem to think that I come from a culture where most of us, it's generational living most of the time. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because, first of all, we can't afford it, right?
No.
I live in California. A 1-bedroom, even a loft, is costing you over $2,000 right now. The salaries aren't $2,000 a month. You know what I mean? So it would be very hard for the children. But I guess they must come to a point where they realize that this is the way we live. This is our family, and that's okay. You know how so many different families are made up of different, different ways, whether it be two moms, two dads, or one dad, one mom, or one grandma, one mom, or whatever it may be. But this is our family, and how you live. I imagine the kids are at that point now where it's okay. This is fun to come home to somebody. Even though I bet they would want to be independent too.
You would think that.
Mm-hmm.
But children with different types of learning disabilities, my daughter, she's very frustrated. She said, I went to college. I did everything I was supposed to do. And now I can't even be on my own. I can't live the way my friends are doing, Daniel and Emily are 28 and 26. My daughter says, where were you at my age? And I'm like, well, I don't really want to tell you. But I was having my son at 28. And now we look at the expectations are really, really sad for them. They yes, it's fun and dandy, but even in high school, my children knew that we were poor. They explained to friends, and I said, well, no. Do we have a roof over our head and food to eat? My son was in high school and he was the only one in his class who knew what a food bank was. Only because we would go to volunteer and then they would give us our food box.
Wow.
Am I ashamed that I had to take my children to do that? No. I want them to see that should things get to that point, this is here for you.
Right.
Knowing community resources was a big thing. I went and did the mental health first aid course that they offered here by our Canada Mental Health Association. Only because if my children exhibited any symptoms that their mental health was in jeopardy, I wouldn't know, because their tics and their ways that their special needs go. Sometimes some stuff you brush off, and others you don't. Well, was that something I should worry about, or what? My daughter came home from school one day in grade 8, and she said, Mommy, those numbers you have on the wall? She says, can I give that to my teacher to give to my friend? She's sad. And the teacher called me at school, and he said, her profile says that she's not supposed to have empathy. And I said, she's my daughter. Of course she has empathy. She's not a piece of paper. And that year she graduated from grade 8. She got the Most Improved Student Award. So it's little things like that tell me, okay, all those frustrating hours when I thought I wasn't doing the right thing, or what more could I do? These are the little windows that tell me that, stop.
That's beautiful, Ann, that you were able to prepare them, and you continue to prepare them for what could lie ahead. I know that the financial strain that you guys had was very real, and it's a real thing for a lot of caregivers out there. What questions should families be asking, and where can they begin looking for support or the resources? We have a lot of folks that are isolated and they try not to come out of that bubble, but reaching out, I think, is the best thing that you can do for yourself and your children and your elderly adults or whoever else you're caring for.
My mother-in-law is 93, and I'll tell you, that lady runs circles around me. They make them good in England, I'll tell you. But I have to tell you, when I was younger with my brothers and sisters, we were always doing something in our community. Whether, helping the needy, selling Girl Guide cookies, anything to... I'm the eldest of 6. I guess they just wanted to keep us busy instead of at home. But it worked, We always, every one of us has done volunteer work when you didn't need them to graduate from high school or whatever. So to me, this is a natural thing to say, hey, my kids have autism. What do you know? What can you tell me? So my advice with that is, if you want to help your children, and as moms, as dads, we all step and think, we'll do anything for them, right? So how is this any different? And it's the same with, your partner or your parents. The less they're stressed, the less guilt lies on you as a caregiver for what you can't do. There's only so much of yourself that you can divide, I guess would be the word.
I know the people heard your video just a while ago about the CBC when they interviewed you and the awareness of these struggles.
I had no preparation for that whatsoever. See, I went and got my hair done because I don't like the grays in that video. But I used my Canadian disability benefit to get my hair done. And
nice.
That's the only reason that happened.
Wow. So what do you hope people understand after hearing your story, Ann?
Life may seem hard, but with even people that are not your close-knit family can help you feel better, whether it be 5 minutes or an hour or someday, next month. I had a woman come up to me in a grocery store and said, I saw you at the Autism Ontario event, and oh my gosh, I want to give you a hug. You helped me. So I couldn't tell you who she was. I don't remember her, but if something I've said has helped her with something, I'm glad she told me, because that made my day. That made me feel really good about being able to do that. And I know how much I appreciated when someone did that for me. So, yep.
That's awesome. I just, truly, I know there might be people out here that are feeling heavy, and what gives you hope? What would you say to another caregiver who feels exhausted, unseen, and unsure how to keep going?
I had cancer when I was pregnant with my son, and they told me he wouldn't survive if I had surgery, and he did. There's no medical reason. He was not meant to survive, and the doctor said, I can't explain it. And then they said, well, that's it. You're not going to have any more. And then I had my daughter. I'm like, okay, you guys don't know what's going on. There's somebody else in control of these things. And my faith has been a lot of a part of what I go through. I'd sing the kids the church songs I knew when I was a kid, and that choir, and every once in a while something comes to me and I try to cry. And you know what? Don't stop the crying. If you're frustrated about something, cry. And then when you're done, you can, blow your nose and keep on going. But don't try and stop a natural feeling when you're being pushed to a limit. And I say that true because, last week, nothing went wrong with that day. But that night, just something hit me, and I just, this is why me. And I'm like, okay, snap out of this, because this is not me. But for an hour, it was me. And then, you move on.
So you still caring for, you feel your role has evolved, or has it stayed kind of the same now with your husband and the 2 kids? Or I know you mentioned earlier that there won't be a day that you're by yourself, but sometimes God made us to be with others. And I know your faith knows that. I can hear it.
Yeah.
Your spirit is intact, sister. I don't know where you've been or how you've done it, but your spirit is ever present right now.
Thank you. It keeps me going. And I have to say, my husband may be limited physically, but our children still involve him with what they do. They still talk to him about what's going on. Doesn't mean he can't, just because he can't stand up, for more than 20 minutes, so be it. You don't need that to listen and show you care and talk. Communication of any kind is a connection. And I think if we were meant to be alone, there wouldn't be so many people here. And I know for a fact that he will always, always keep my faith going, and that will keep me from giving him big kisses every night. So it doesn't matter.
I want to thank you for reminding us that caregivers are not just support people. They are advocates, protectors, organizers, problem solvers, often the backbone of families and communities. Tonight's takeaways is this: you matter too. Your health matters. Your breast matters. Your voice matters. When caregivers feel supported, they can continue to share good and powerful ways. And Ann has showed us tonight. But they cannot pour from an empty cup. Remember that. So make sure if you have a caregiver, you check on them this week. See how they're doing, whether it's a neighbor. I know I have plenty of neighbors here that are older. They don't open their door and they're kind of resistant. But when I see them, I wave to them. I want them to know they're seen. Offer practical help, not just let me know. Share the replay. Share this replay. Let someone know that someone was thinking of them and wanted to show them how they can also incorporate maybe some of these things that Ann has done, or maybe be uplifted by her story as well. So reach out if they need support. And remember, community, we're here to connect. Jillian, I give it back to you. I'm sorry Ann's story was amazing and I love it. And I'm giving you back 13 minutes.
I know. Before we close out on the live in here, I think it's nice if you can guys move into the private call for the after party where we get to know and maybe ask some more questions with Ann. But there's a reason why I wanted Sonia to do the interview, because I knew that I would not be able to hold it together. And, I would be bawling after the first question, because I've seen your story.
Yeah.
From the beginning. Yes. That I met you, when we were both going through a very hard time, when we both became single, divorced mothers of young children. Except you had Daniel and Emily, and your story was a lot harder than mine. Although I was going through my own turmoils, you still took the time to be my caregiver as a friend. And there's one thing I just want to share inside the community. Community is not just about being a caregiver for others. When we are caregivers, we're also caregivers for people that we care to choose to be in our lives. Remember that.
I told the kids that I was coming on here because of you. And Daniel says, "Oh, right, Emily. She's the lady who's got the TV on the wall."
Oh.
And the popcorn machine.
Yes. For those of you, I used to have this beautiful basement, and the kids would come over and we watch movies and we just have parties. And I live a lot more simpler life now. My TV is my computer. I live my life through my computer. My life is outside. Things are relative to where you are today. But I just want to put those that are listening still on the call. I just want to remember that community can be a saving grace for many. Like Ann, you found your community and support with those that were like-minded and going through the same struggle. And I think that was one of my biggest takeaway with you and I. We met because we were going through a life change at the same time. We're both navigating the idea of being single again. I mean, I hadn't been single for 20 years. I didn't know what being single was. I basically married my first boyfriend, basically. And all of a sudden, I needed to go back and reinvent myself at age 40. I didn't know what dating was all about. So I met, fortunately, some amazing women who were navigating that role as a single mom again. And we only had a certain window of time where we weren't caregivers. are, trying to balance the life of parents and being a mom and working and being single again. And then we had a little window where we handed off our children to our spouses. And that little window was a very precious moment of time. And fortunately, we found that community with each other and became friends. And that's what you're doing here on Tuesday nights. The those that come in and be on our shows or listen to the replays, we're balancing time. But don't ever forget to put yourself forward and put yourself priority. And just like I try to sometimes forget that too. But I know if I needed you, you would balance some time for me. Just like we did back then.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And that's where we sometimes we get busy. And if you're listening out there still, don't hesitate to invite people to our community. It's a good community of good people. Not just, when we say good health, it's mind, body, and spirit. So these calls are not always going to talk to you about immune system. We're not always going to talk to you about, we got to pump up this protein. It's how you show up and contribute. And if you can help somebody, have a good day. Wow, you said it earlier, like you just felt good and that you were able to celebrate your influence and helping relieve stress off your parents, off Michael, off Daniel, off Emily. And I want you to relieve stress from yourself. So the more you can contribute, I'm your biggest healer. And now you're going to have many more to do the same. So I know there's a couple people out there in the chat here, but I'm going to stop the live. And then
I'll just tell you one more thing.
Yeah, so stop. See, you want to come in a private, we'll stop the recording. But you do want to, before we close this out, please make sure that you are following our YouTube channel, because we do have the recordings from our Caregiver Conversations, all 4 of them. I'm just going to share this screen a little bit so that you can see what I'm talking about. And this was like basically just a reminder about self-care. But I do want you to, for those out there that recap, we did have a Mother's Day show. We had a Nurses Week show. We had a Family Caregiver show. We had tonight's show. But if you want to watch the recording, they are on YouTube. Follow our channel, Feel Good, Share Good. We actually have all of these recordings uploaded for you to watch at your convenience, because not everybody can be here on these calls. But they're there for you to watch for a replay. And up for those in the live next month, we're going to be talking about immune system health and preventative wellness training. There's going to be more training on how we can help you with preventative measures. Like we just, on last Monday, we had a really great call on hantavirus. We want to help you get healthy, mind, body, and spirit. We're going to give you some tools this next month. And I just want to say thank you for everybody for Feel Good Share. But I also want to say thank you, Ann. Stay on the call. But don't forget to invite people to our community. It's here for you. It's for here to do good in the world. And remember, if you be good, you feel good, you share good, and ultimately you do good with everybody else.